Greetings, productive programmers. So in this lesson, we are going to go ahead and make our users online because right now I can't tell. I know that I'm logged in as this user, but I don't know if any other users are in here unless they say something. So I want to know what other users are online. So let's go ahead and implement that functionality. So we'll start off by setting up some basic placeholder code to demonstrate what we want to do. Well, we already have I'm going to take this. This will be convenient. We already have our users here. So we already have some template code. We're going to set up another for loop here where we are going to loop through, and instead of displaying, we don't need to use the local function. We don't have a lot of code here. I'm just using these paragraphs, and it's really simple. So I don't think we're going to need to get as complicated as we did before. We don't have a big, we only use that because we had a nice chunk of code. Here we're just going to have one paragraph. I'm okay with just implementing this right here in the code. So we don't want to display chat messages here. We want to display the users online. So we'll do users online, and then this will just simply be a user, and that user, their username will be displayed here. So we'll just go ahead and put that user right here. And I guess we'll probably just be storing, let me fix this. We'll probably just be storing the users' names right inside of the users online. So this structure should work. There's an error because we haven't mounted this variable users online, so we can't find it. So let's go over to our code. Anytime you have a variable that you're tracking in your socket, it always needs to be set up here. And so we're just going to track the users online. So I'll just go ahead and paste that here and do users online. And that will fix that problem. And yeah, so now that we have that working, we need to actually put some users there. Well, I didn't mean to paste this 2 times actually. We want to make this be like a default list of values. And I'll just do, for an example, I'll just test this out. So I'll have like Bob and Alice, and I'll save that. And if we come back over here, Bob and Alice, it'll display as that they're online. So initially we're just going to set this to be an empty list, right? But now we have some placeholder where we can make those users display. So we need to populate this field with the actual users. And the way that we're going to do that is we are going to implement something in Phoenix, which is really convenient, and it's called presence. So presence, like the presence of somebody in your vicinity. So we're going to implement that. And the way we will do that is we first have to configure it. And so to configure presence, we will come back over here to our mix application, and we will go to our chat, and we'll locate our application.ex. So in here we have a list of applications that are active on our chat web app. And so you can see that we have some of them we are familiar with that we're using. Others are doing their thing behind the scene. We have used a chat web endpoint to send our broadcasts over. And additionally, we have done PubSub. So we have all this stuff implemented. And now we want to set up presence. And anytime that you use presence, you always want to make sure that it is implemented before the endpoint according to what the documentation say. So I'm going to put chat web, our application name, presence, right here before chat web endpoint. And if you were to check the documentation, they just specify that it is necessary to put that before here. So that way everything gets implemented as needed. So here we can see in the documentation where it specifies that presence needs to be before endpoint, and they just have some setup here. So phoenix.presence, and in the docs that is helpful for just figuring out how we have to implement this. It also says that we need to define a module for the presence, and that's going to hold our configuration. So we'll copy this code here, and we'll go back to our application and set this up. So inside of our application, we'll go into our chat web, and we'll just create a new file called presence.ex. And in here, we'll put that code that we got from the documentation on how to implement presence. And the Only caveat here is that it's referring to my app, and my app is actually called chat. So this is going to be chat.pubsub. That's what we want to be calling. And then we should be good to go. Well, actually, my app web here, that's a problem. So we need to call this chat web. So those are replaced, and then we are good to go now. Okay, so Presence is installed. And the next step is to go ahead and use it. So let's go ahead and inside of our mount area here, we want to check and listen for the presence of other users. So in order to do that, we're going to go inside of where we have our socket being connected. And just like we subscribe to a topic, we now want to track for when there is presence. And so looking at the documentation, it takes a socket, a topic. We want to pass a topic to listen for, and then a key, and then any metadata. So we will implement our tracking now inside of our topic page. And so when the page mounts, we're going to set it up to track anytime there is a user change in the web application. So we'll do chatweb.presence. And we'll set this up to track, and we will set this to be self, and then we'll track our topic name, and we are going to use the key that we are looking for changes in as username. And then we saw that it also requires the metadata. We're not going to set any metadata here, and so it's not necessary to look at that, but it is required because it takes 4 arguments. So we're going to set that up, and in order to track our username, this username is declared afterward. So we need to move this up in our function, in our mount. So just to make sure that username can be passed into here and topic name can be passed in. So that looks good. So it's throwing some errors. That's not anything to worry about now. And just make sure that we want to make sure that we do stop our server though, and restart it, because in our previous, just before we came over here, we went into our application, and inside of our application, we installed Presence. So we need to restart our server in order for Presence to fire up as an application inside of our server. So do stop your server and restart it just to avoid that issue. Those errors reminded me that that was going to likely be an issue, although those errors were unrelated to that cause. That's just throwing errors now because we're tracking stuff and we are not really doing anything with it. So it's having trouble matching on handle info. And let's see what's going on with handle info. So it says here in the errors, it is throwing a bunch of errors saying that there is information about joins and leaves. So it's already working. So it looks like our tracking has already taken instant effect. It is tracking to try to see who is joining and leaving the chat room. And in order to properly implement this, we need to check to see we need to listen for the event presence diff and handle this. So let's go ahead and implement that, because it's already throwing warnings about that. And if we come in here, what we can do is, so we want to use presence diff. We're going to create that. Anytime you're dealing with PubSub or presence, it always is the handle info function that you need. So we're going to create a duplicate of one of these. And this event that we're going to track is going to be presence diff. And we are going to not need any payload. And we can just log. We don't need to log anything yet. And then we don't need to update our chat messages. We actually want to update the users online. And we'll leave that empty for now because we don't have any data to pass in there. So implementing this presence diff made those errors go away, because we were tracking to see when there are differences in the users, and it was starting to throw errors already because we weren't actually handling that event here that we had hooked into to check the presence of on the topic that we are tracking. So now what we're going to do is we are going to check to see which users are online. And the best way to do this would be to go ahead and use the presence list of everything that we want to see, everything basically that is on the topic. So we can do that by doing chat web presence list. And then we can list out everything that matches the socket assigns topic name, and we will get everything that is coming through on that topic when we do this, and it'll give it to us in a list. And it's, again, because we're tracking by username, it's going to give us every single user basically as a list. And so we're going to set that to users online. And we didn't grab any metadata, but let's see what just to check our structure here before we introduce any break-in changes. Well, let's just log out and see what this presence diff, and I'll give it the info presence diff. Let's see what this is displaying here. And let's save it. And it was throwing a bunch of errors before, so let's go ahead. Oh, so here it is, presence diff. So it updated and it let us know that there was a user named Chili Telephone, and it had some additional data set to it. So let's add another user to the page here. So if I just duplicate this into a new tab, now I have Pitful Ostrich and we have Chili Telephone. And so now the presence diff gets updated every time that a user enters the room. And we can see that we have both users here. So I'll go ahead and click duplicate on one of these tabs again, and then you can see in real time that it will update the presence diff. Every time we add a user, anytime there's a difference in users, because that's the keyword that we're tracking on this topic. So if we also delete a user, that should be tracked as well, and we can see that this presence diff gets smaller and smaller. So that's basically all of our users that are online right now. And we can go ahead and the only thing though is that we can see is that it's a key value pair, and it sends us the Phoenix reference as the metadata, and we don't need any of that. So we're just going to need the keys because those are our users. So let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and grab everything that is in the map. So we're going to do map keys because we just need the keys in this instance, and that will return us just the keys of the users online. And then we'll just test that out quickly to make sure it is looking appropriate. So I'll come back here to topic Phoenix, and now we can see that we just get the users. And if I duplicate this again, now we're just getting the users in a presence diff. So this is now just a list of users. And presence diff is coming from our logger actually. So just a list of users. So we can take that and pass that to users online. And now we already set this up. We already set up this loop in our placeholder. So our code should just function. And now you can see that the users online, and anytime that we open up a new page, it displays all the users online. And additionally, all of this is real time. So if I go ahead and refresh a user here, you'll see that this page refreshes itself because Disgustin Lamb is currently logged in and he's Disgustin. We don't want him. So let's refresh this page, make him go away, and we'll see him disappear over here. And this user will get a new random name, and now Snappy Brick is here and Disgusting Lamb was removed from this list. And so if we add another user, we'll see that this list gets updated, and now Crimson Boar is here. If one of these users, such as Spring Taxi Cab, just completely leaves the room, we now are down to 3 and then 2, and we are seeing ourself as logged in as well. We could technically go ahead and filter that, but it doesn't bother me that we are displaying that we are logged in. So that's pretty typical for a chat room to display your own name. It looks good to me. And so now that we have presence added to our application, we can see all of the users in a very nice list. And that was pretty easy to implement. It didn't take too much effort to get a really nice functionality. Although using presence can be a little bit wonky to get used to for the first couple times that you're using it, but the documentation is very helpful to follow along with. And I hope that this lesson has been helpful so that you can understand how you can track keys on topics and you can implement some sort of action anytime there's a change there. Very simply, just by setting up a handle info to listen for the event presence diff once you're listening to that topic and that user and that key. So that topic and the key. So that is it for this lesson. I will see you over in the next lesson where we are going to basically just clean up this code now. I don't like how when I say hello that it doesn't feel like a chat yet. This feels like a list of messages. So I'm just going to set this up so that it doesn't look like a list of messages and it looks more like a chat message that you would expect. And that way, this is a more appealing interface for us.